The problem is what most people do in relationships is you have one person that is broken. They are like a little piece of something. And what happens is they get into a relationship with someone that knows themselves, they've got their life together, and they get completely absorbed within this relationship. They completely lose themselves. When this person then leaves their life again, they are back to having absolutely nothing in their life. And this is what causes people so many issues, because they've got no idea about any of this stuff, and it absolutely cripples them. Welcome to the Prime Life Project podcast, a place to help you unlock your full potential, both mentally and physically, to become the best version of you. Welcome back to an episode of the Prime Life Project podcast. I'm your host, Daniel James, and I'm joined once again by Katie. Katie, how are we?
I'm good. How are you?
Very well, thank you very much. So, for long-term listeners of the podcast, you will know that Katie comes on and asks me some questions. Normally, she sits behind the scenes, so whenever you see me and Mikey having a conversation, that's normally structured in some way, shape or form, and it's Katie that is behind the scenes telling Mikey what to ask me, because left to our own devices, we just do what we want, and it's chaotic. So, every now and again, we get Katie on as well to have more structure and peace. However, today we are doing a follow-on from the Q&A that I did myself a couple of weeks ago, because that was meant to be an episode like this where Katie was asking me the questions. However, due to people being ill and things not kind of working out, ended up being a solo episode for me. But this is a follow-on with Katie having more questions, because she put the same sort of question box out on her Instagram. She got different responses, different questions. So that is where we're going today. So Katie, hit me with some of these questions.
Yeah, there is a very diverse mix.
Awesome.
I will pre-warn you now. And obviously, just for the listeners, Dan has not seen or heard these beforehand, so completely on the spot.
Whereas actually, for the other ones, obviously I did when I was solo. I did have them, and they were very in-depth. So I will link that below. So if you want to see the solo Q&A for me, I'll link that in the description so you can watch that, because potentially we're doing more of those, and the questions do remain 100% anonymous as well. So what we got?
Okay, so the first one. How do you not let small, annoying little things affect you and your day?
So this is quite a hard one, because I think everyone, no matter who they are, can get affected by little things. Mm-hmm. It's hard not to. Like,
yeah.
It just is what it is. But I think one of the biggest things is realising how important is this in the grand scheme of life. And that for me comes through self-awareness. And self-awareness for me is just having that understanding of our thoughts, our feelings and emotions, and then the actions that we take. So for me, it's just finding that gap in that space between our thoughts and our emotions and the actual actions that we take. Because normally what happens is this thing will bother us. We've got no awareness of our thoughts. We've got no awareness of our emotional reaction to the situation. And then we either sit there in our minds getting annoyed about this situation, or we take action which is not in proportion to the event that's happened. We've blown it completely out of proportion, and the action we take is just ridiculous. So if we can sort of find that space to sort of notice our thoughts and notice, that's interesting, that thing's really bothered me. And again, we use the word nowadays, triggered. And for those, the word trigger essentially is a thought, feeling, or emotion about a thing. So it's a real thing, but it's just overused and people don't really understand what it means. So this thing has triggered you, and you're just sat in there like, why has this bothered me? What about this thing has bothered me? And especially if you're in a relationship, you'll notice that little things will bother you a lot about your partner. And here's then the thing. Normally, when you have a massive blow-up argument about the dishwasher or about socks on the floor, it's not the socks on the floor that are the issue. It's all the little things that have happened over the last 2 weeks, 3 weeks, 6 months that you haven't communicated, that have built up, which have then made this little thing a big thing. So it's then asking yourself, when this little thing becomes a big thing, why has this little thing become a big thing? And it could be that you haven't communicated or expressed things in the past, which now means that this, like in a game of Buckaroo, this is the straw that broke the camel's back and stuff's gone everywhere. That's not the issue. The issue was actually something that's happened 6 months ago, which has caused your thoughts to go into this place and your emotions to become over the top.
And how do you stop those things building up so that Buckaroo or whatever the example was doesn't occur?
Communication. I think a lot of people struggle with communication. And for me, it's because we're wearing masks. So a lot of us walk around wearing a mask. We're not really being true and authentic to ourselves. So especially if we're with a partner, let's say, you went on this first date with your partner and you wore a mask because you don't want to show the real version of you in case you get rejected. And then what happens is this other person, who's potentially also wearing a mask as well, likes this masked version of you. So you then can't really show the best version of you now, this authentic version of you, because they've liked this mask. So throughout your entire relationship, you're basically wearing a mask without really showing this true version of you. So for me, like, you don't let it bother you by just lowering that mask that you're wearing and just start to communicate and start to say, like, the way you spoke to me, like, that didn't really feel good, or this really bothers me because, and actually start to figure out yourself first. Why is this thing bothering you? Because it's really difficult to try and communicate something you don't understand. So if something is bothering you, like the socks on the floor, don't just pick your socks up. Oh, that really bothers me. Okay, well, I don't care if it bothers you because that's your problem. However, if you articulate to me why it bothers you, then I'm more emotionally invested because I want you to be happy, and it's such a minor thing. I didn't realise it bothered you. But if you're just going to come in and shout at me for these socks, instantly you're going to get my back up. So the way that you overcome this is the self-awareness of, this is bothering me because, and it all comes down to just taking that mask off, being a bit vulnerable, and actually communicating how you authentically feel, not through this avatar version of you that you've created, because it gets exhausting and you don't know whether you're wearing a mask, you're trying to be authentic. It's just be true to yourself. If things are starting to bother you and they weren't necessarily in the beginning, just communicate it. But first comes to figuring out, why has this bothered you? How does this make you feel? So using like an emotions wheel is a great thing. Like, to actually get to, like, well, how does this make me feel? Because angry is very different to bitter.
Yeah.
So if you're going to say, oh, it makes me feel really bitter or unloved, or, oh, okay, wow, that's like, wow, okay. Me leaving my sock on floor makes you feel unloved. Okay, well, that's different to angry. Can we see? So the more, again, I don't even know if unloved's on there. I don't think it is, but using the emotions wheel to accurately articulate how you're feeling means that you can actually have your needs met, because your partner then be like, oh, I've done this thing. It's made them feel this certain way. This is what I'm going to do to make sure that this gets resolved in the long run. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And let's just jump on that mask thing, because I do think it's really important. How do you kind of recommend, or how do you go about living your life without a mask on? Because I know if we take it back to the episode that we did about your story, like, you were the king of masks. You had a mask for every different situation. But knowing you, you're not like that now. How do you go about living your life mask free?
Yeah, it was a long process and it's exhausting. Like, it's absolutely exhausting. And this is the thing, I'm not perfect at this still, because there's still situations that come up. So just talking beforehand, like, I've just started powerlifting in the gym. So that is completely out of my comfort zone. I am completely new to this. And I had a coach working with me in the gym. So to start off with, I would have gone in there with like a protection mask, because I've been in the fitness industry for 15 years and I've told him to treat me like a novice. So straight away, that's going to make me feel a certain thing. So then I've realised that I'm putting my boundaries up and my barriers, even though I've asked for it. So then it's that, again, awareness. It comes down to awareness. But it's not awareness that you're wearing a mask. It's the awareness of who are you at your core. Because you've got, again, people call it inner child. But it can be inner child, whatever resonates with you, like the core you, the best version of yourself, is all essentially the same thing. So you've got that pure version of you that you know is there. You have to tap into that and start to notice, who is that? What do they want? What do they like? What do they not like? And this is wearing no masks. You're asking yourself completely judgment-free, what do I, as this avatar Daniel, like? And then once you've got that list, you then start to live by that. So again, look at your values. So just figure out what your values are. If you don't know, just do some exercise on core values. That's not necessarily a bit deep diving here, but once you know your core values and what you value in life, you can start to align your actions and behaviours with that, rather than these masks where, for example, you are basically, let's say I talk to Mikey and I'm like, Mikey's like, what's your favourite movie? So I say to Mikey, what's your favourite movie? And Mikey's like, oh, you're Fast and Furious. I'm like, oh yeah, me too, favourite movie. And I talk to you and you're like, oh, what's Moana? And I'm like, oh yeah, me too, it's my favourite. And basically I'm wearing
that is actually my favourite.
Yeah, I know. Constantly wearing all these different masks. It's exhausting. Whereas it's like, if Mikey's like, oh, it's Fast and Furious, I'm like, oh, it's a great movie, but actually my favourite movie is this. And then he comes to you, oh, mine's Moana. Okay, well, mine's actually this. There's a very clear difference, because if you keep going around like a chameleon, it's exhausting, because you've also got to remember the lies that you've told. And that's the worst thing about wearing a mask. You've got to remember the lies you've told, who you've told the lies to, and who you're supposed to be at what time. And this is where you see people freak the hell out when they get groups of friends mixing.
When their worlds collide. Because they put on one mask at work, they put on another mask at home, they put on another mask with one group of friends, another group of friends, and it freaks people out. And that was the same for me in a lot of ways. Whereas now it's like, I know who I am. I'm not perfect. I know my flaws. I've owned my flaws. Like, and that's a massive thing for me in the past, where, again, in that whole episode, like, a lot of that stuff I spoke about, I would hold on to it. So I'm not perfect. I know I'm not. And I love that fact. The fact that I can rock up into the world and know that I am completely I'm perfectly imperfect like everybody else, and that's okay. Like, you and this thing, you're in a room full of 50 people, 100 people, and you ask that movie question, you're going to get 100 different answers. Maybe some will be similar,
But just because someone's got different taste to you, they're not going to judge you for it. It's like, oh, this is what it is. And some people won't like you. It's not that they don't like you or value you as a human being. It's just they don't resonate with you on such a level. Does that make sense? You're supposed to exactly. You're supposed to resonate with some people and not with others. You're not supposed to get on with everyone. That's not how the world works. And I think that's why we put these masks on, because we want everyone to like us. And if everyone likes us, by definition, no one likes you because they don't know who you are. Because it's impossible for everybody to like everybody. It does not work.
No.
It just is not.
Because everyone doesn't like the same thing, so they're just like different versions
of you. Even if you're the
you.
nicest person on the planet, the nicest person, some people will hate that because you're a pushover, you're too soft, you're a pussy. Even if you're the nicest person, I was like, oh, but he's so lovely. Some people will hate that. Yep. And that's, for me, the most, just become aware of yourself, the mask, what do you truly want? And just go in there and tell the truth. Tell the truth of, I don't like that. But why? Don't just be like, oh, I don't like that. No. Oh, I don't really like that because of this. So you said Moana. Again, by the way, I love Moana, but I'm like, oh, really? I didn't really enjoy that. And you're like, oh, it's my favourite movie. Oh, yeah, I really enjoyed the storyline's a bit weak for me. Okay, but then that person's going to value you more because you've actually stood your ground and you've articulated why you don't like it.
Yeah.
It's my opinion. And that for me is just, you're standing your ground, knowing your worth, knowing the value that you bring, and standing by your decisions and just owning them.
Yeah.
Because you are you. You don't have to impress anybody else. But it's very hard. It's a long-winded process to remove yourself of the masks. They're still going to pop up every now and again. So that's where the awareness comes in, just checking in with yourself and being like, am I being authentic to myself right now? Yeah. Or am I trying to people please? Am I wearing a mask? Am I feeling anxious and comfortable and just trying to put this defense mechanism back up?
And how does it feel now? Obviously, you said that you do sometimes put on a slight mask for protection, but generally speaking, you're not, Daniel of 100 masks. How does that feel now compared to how it felt before?
Oh, God. Like, I don't have to care what I say. Anyway, I don't know if you hear Mike in the background. Mikey's laughing, but I don't have to watch what I say.
Yeah.
Because what I say is the truth. So I don't have to go to one group of people and say something and think, oh, what have I said? I just talk. I just talk.
You're just you.
Just me. Because I don't have to pretend. I don't have to be like, oh, well, I've told Mikey this, and I've told Kate something else. So I can't say that thing to Mikey because I've told Kate something else. And that, just the anxiety that brings to people. Like, I don't care. I will literally talk to any of you two and about anything because what I've told both of you is the same.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yeah, it's completely liberating. One of the best things I could ever recommend anyone do is just start to be authentic, start to figure out who you actually are at your core, figure out your likes, your dislikes, and just own the fact that not everyone's going to like you. And that's absolutely okay. It does not devalue your worth as a human being. You're more than this physical body.
Cool. Thank you.
Mini rant.
Second question. And I got this in 3 different forms, so I've kind of amalgamated the 3.
Okay, 3 in 1. Let's go.
How do you build trust in a romantic relationship?
Be a trustworthy person. So to build trust in a relationship, you have to be a trustworthy person. And again, speaking from personal experience, and this isn't go for everyone, but most of the time, the reason why people struggle with trust in relationships is because they are not a trustworthy person themselves. Not all the time, but if they've got something to hide, they think everyone else has got something to hide. And that was the case for me. A lot of the times I would not trust the other person because I was untrustworthy myself. So I would assume that they were like me. And once you start to become a trustworthy person, you'll start to attract more trustworthy people and you'll start to notice the red flags. You'll notice the red flags early on. So what was the actual question? Wasn't...
how do you build trust in a romantic relationship?
Do things that require trust. So in order to build trust, you have to give someone 100% benefit of the doubt until proven otherwise. You have to assume that they're a trustworthy person until they prove you otherwise, in my opinion. Because for me, if you're just assuming they're not trustworthy, you're never going to give them an opportunity to prove that they are trustworthy. Now, I'm not saying you go there and you give them the password, the PIN code, your bank details and all that sort of stuff. I'm not saying you go to that extreme, but you just be open and honest with them. So especially in a relationship, and let's say this is an intimate relationship, you maybe tell someone one of your insecurities. Just not one that could cripple you, but just something like, I'm really insecure about my forehead. Let's just use forehead as an example, because that used to be something that crippled me for years. So then I then share with you that that's one of my insecurities. Okay. If we ever get into an argument and then you bring that up and use it as ammunition, okay. So I now can't trust you, my insecurities. Don't necessarily have to say that to the person, but you're just kind of looking for me. It's like you're not tripping people up. You're not setting them up for failure, but you can't see if someone's trustworthy or not until you give them information or things that require them to be trustworthy. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So for me, the first thing is you've got to be trustworthy yourself. Are you the kind of person where if your partner says something like that about their forehead, are you then going to throw it back to them in an argument? Or can they trust you that they've shared that with you in confidence and you're going to hold on to that? You're then not going to go and tell all your friends about it. Because that you build that trust within yourself first. You trust yourself to know that you're a trustworthy person, and then you give them the same grace. And they are going to mess up, but then the way that I liken this is like a bank. Because everyone messes up, no one's perfect. And for me, when it comes down to trust, if someone's made deposits into your bank and they've made 10 positive deposits, so real big important things where you need to trust them and they've kept their word, and they make one silly mistake, which you know is a genuine mistake, you then can't diminish all the 10 deposits they've put in there. Maybe you take out 8, so they're now down to 2 things in the bank. But you don't just get rid of all 10 and think they're now suddenly not a trustworthy person. So for me, it goes back to this sort of teaching all the religious texts. Treat the people how you'd like to be treated. If you mess up, how would you like to be treated in that situation? Yeah. But then comes to boundaries. So it's like 3-strike rule, for example, or even a 2-strike rule. You give the person one, you messed up, you're on your last warning. Okay, but then with a boundary, as I mentioned before, a boundary is a doing word. So in order just saying, if there's one more time, I'm gone, that's not a boundary. Them doing it and then you sticking and saying I'm gone and actually going, that's a boundary. Otherwise, it's just a word. Does that make sense? So for me in that situation, it's understanding there's, to Mike's favorite word, there has to be nuance to everything. Just because someone has lied, if it's a small little white lie, don't then disregard the 20 massive inputs they've put in there. Just say to them, listen, I didn't really like how you said that. Like, it made me feel like I couldn't trust you. I understand why you were white lying, but I'd really appreciate if you didn't, because they may be white lying to save your feelings, for example. Am I making sense with this? It's completely situational, and realise that if it's a massive thing, then someone can wipe out 20 things. Yeah. 100%, but it has to be
proportionality,
proportionality, but it's a big thing. If someone's built up 20 massive positive trust tokens, for them to wipe that all out and go back to 0 or straight away broke up with, it's got to be something major. Yeah. But in some cases, that's completely the right action to do. Yeah. Like, for example, the big thing is, let's say one of my insecurities is cheating. My biggest insecurities is being cheated on. It's not, but let's say it was. And then you know that, and you've got 25, 30 positive deposits, and then you cheat on me. That for me is now a no-go. That for me in that situation would be a no-go, because you know that's a massive thing for me. It's taken me so long to actually trust you. You built up all my trust in this, and you've almost built me up that you're a trustworthy person, and yet you've done the one thing that you know will destroy me. Yeah. And again, so there's another sort of point, because I know it's easier said than done, but that for me is then no. Yeah. That you can't build it up overnight. That is I'm removing myself from the situation. I need to see where my head's at, and I'll come back if and when I feel like it's necessary. Yeah. But again, I hope that answers the question. But the main thing is, like, when it comes to trust, is for me, it's always assuming people are good. Just because you've had a bad experience before with past partners, don't assume this person's the same. Because if you're going in there not trusting them off the bat, that's just going to cause a divide. That's going to cause a wedge. 100%.
And that was actually a version of that question that I had, was I've been cheated on or treated poorly in the past in previous relationships. So how do I'm in a new relationship, they've done nothing wrong. How do I stop myself from not trusting them based on what other people have done to me in the past?
But then here's the thing that the person who asked that question is not going to like. How do I stop myself from being treated badly in the past? That's a them problem. The other person hasn't treated them badly. They have allowed the other person to treat them badly. And people do not like that. That is their fault. Yeah. It's not so their fault.
You accept, right?
Yeah, exactly. And it's not deliberate. I'm not saying it's their fault and they deserved it. Not at all. But it's like, once someone disrespects you like that once, and you let them get away with it, that's now on you. That's now on you, because you haven't, again, set that boundary. You haven't communicated that. So then my question with this is, when it comes to trust, is there a reason? Are you ready for a relationship? Is my first actual. Let's take it back from everything I've said. Number one, are you actually ready for a relationship? Because if you're taking your past baggage into a current relationship, you're going to have repeated patterns. So if you haven't noticed, let's say every ex-partner that you've had 5 exes, or let's go 3 exes. All 3 of your exes have been narcissistic. Okay. You are the person that's allowing narcissists into your life. You are the kind of person, maybe you're a codependent, because a codependent and a narcissist go hand in hand. Yeah. You are the kind of person that a narcissist attracts, because all they've got to do is say certain things to you and you're putty in their hand. The narcissist shouldn't do what they did. However, if 3 narcissists in a row, you've gone with 3 narcissists in a row, you're the common denominator. Yeah. And people hate to hear that, but that's the truth. Yeah. That is the absolute truth. It's not your fault. It's not your fault, because, again, most people don't know, but it's now your responsibility. Because I've worked with clients before where I've said to them, when they think they're ready to date and stuff, I said,
And I've literally just put on an act, and I've basically just talked to them like we're on a date, and I've said 3 or 4 things. I see the look on their face, and I went, there you go.
Yeah.
And they're like, oh. I went, all I had to do was say 3 things to you, and straight away you just started to feel something within you because you crave it.
Yeah.
And if I'm a narcissist going on a date with you, I can see these flags. I can see them on them. Like, wow. All I've got to do is put this mask on and Mr. Nice Guy for 3 months, and I will destroy this person. So then it's just taking that responsibility and realizing that you might be the common denominator.
Yeah.
And when it comes to trust things, again, you always attract cheats. Okay. Why?
Yeah.
What has led people to cheating on you? Are you so emotionally unavailable that you're attracting emotionally unavailable people? Or are you such a fixer that you attract people that are quote unquote broken?
So you can fix them.
So that you can fix them, but actually because they've themselves got these underlying issues, they need to get that validation externally from other people. Because again, as someone that's cheated on people, it's never the person that the person that I cheated on, like my girlfriend at the time, they were never the problem.
No.
They were amazing. And people think when they're cheated on that they're the problem. They're not. This person was amazing. They were giving me everything they wanted, sexually, everything, every box was ticked. I was the issue. There was something missing within me that led me to go and cheat. But again, that person attracted me into their life. Yeah. Maybe they thought they could fix me. Yeah. Different conversation.
Yeah.
Does this make sense? So it's just realizing, like, it all comes back to the awareness and asking yourself, am I actually ready to date? Because if you're carrying all this baggage into this new relationship and you've got these trust issues, you're going to cause trust issues. Yeah.
And I think that is a really big question, because I've been asked this question. So the person that sent this in also then asked me it in conversation as well. And it's an interesting one, isn't it? Because obviously we were friends, and now we're not. Well, we are friends. But it's an interesting one. And my answer always is, to the point that you started with, is do things to build trust. So I have had trust issues in previous relationships, but I never have with you, because I trusted you with everything before we were even together, if that makes sense, you know, with like work and business and all that good stuff. So
it's also owning. Like, I've owned my past. I've not tried to make any excuses. And people can say what they want about my past. Okay. Cool. I've owned it. I've absolutely owned it. There's nothing that I can do to right my wrongs. All I can do is, moving forward, try and help people to not make the same mistakes I did, and basically help people get out of the place that I was in, where lack of self-worth, etc., etc., etc. But for me, it always goes back to, if, again, it goes to jobs, anything, if you're in relationships and it's the same patterns, and you're always saying, oh, I always pick this. Okay, you're the common denominator.
Why?
You're the common denominator. Just take some time to be by yourself. Just be by yourself and start to ask yourself some questions. What do you want? What do you actually value in a relationship? And as Keyshawn Scott said, who was is a long-term guest on the podcast from about 2 years ago, and it almost started, don't paint red flags white. And some people are so desperate, literally desperate. And that's another thing narcissists spot out. They can smell the desperation. Yeah. And again, people say, oh, you can't. Go to a shop where people get work on commission basis, and go see a poor salesperson, and you will notice the energy of desperation of, they want you to buy this thing, and it's relentless. The people on the streets, when they're trying to sign up for charity, they work on a commission basis. They are desperate for you to sign up for this charity, so they'll chase you down, and it's desperation. And that's the same thing. Stop being so desperate for validation from other people. Stop being so desperate to need someone in your life, or I need to be with someone. You don't need anyone. The person that you go into a relationship with should add to your life. The amazing life that you've already got, the amazing relationship that you've already got, they should add to that. You should not need them to make you feel a certain way, because that is complete codependency, and that then causes a slippery slope. And even if the person is not narcissistic, that relationship can become that kind of relationship, because you are nothing without them. Yeah. Nothing. Yeah.
The people that I've seen that have the strongest relationships are those that have their amazing lives, and then it's like the circles, isn't it? And then they overlap, and then they have their life together as well.
So I'll tell you what, I'll use an example of this so we can sort of see on the board. So basically what Katie's alluding to here is that in a relationship you should have 2 circles. And when they come together, they create one big circle. That is how relationships should be. The problem is, what most people do in relationships is you have one person that is broken. They are like a little piece of something. And what happens is they get into a relationship with someone that knows themselves, they've got their life together, and they get completely absorbed within this relationship. They completely lose themselves. When this person then leaves their life again, they are back to having absolutely nothing in their life. And this is what causes people so many issues, because they've got no idea about any of this stuff, and it absolutely cripples them. So to answer that question, like that's a real thing. The circles, there should be two circles coming together. You know your worth, I know my worth.
Yeah.
And then we create extra stuff together, rather than me needing this person in my life.
Yeah.
Yep.
Cool. Anything else to add on that?
I don't think so. I think I've got a massive tangent there, but we'll roll with it.
We'll roll with it. Okay, so the next question. How do you handle when plans change? I really struggle when I have everything planned out for the day and something alters it, usually related to my partner or my kids.
Repeat that one more time so I can sit with it.
How do you handle when plans change? I really struggle when I have everything planned out for the day and something alters it, usually related to my partner or my kids.
So again, also these questions, I'm only getting part context to it. You've got to realise that you can't control anything. Nothing. Not a single thing. The only thing you can control is your thoughts and your actions. So the reason why this person is getting worked up, wound out, anxious, stressed, whatever it is, irate because plans change, is because they're trying to control things they have no right to control. So let's say you've got a perfect day planned out with the kids and then it rains. Okay, you can't control that. What can you control? How you respond to that situation. And here's the difference. A lot of people react to situations. And this goes back to what we spoke about the first question. They react because they're not aware of their triggers, meaning they're not aware of their thoughts around this situation. They're not aware of their feelings around the situation. So they just act on impulse, which may be to scream, get mad, maybe go into a shell, cry, whatever it is. And then that doesn't help solve the situation. Whereas what you want to do is notice, the plans have changed. I'm now feeling really out of control. Okay, what can I do? What action can I take to regain control? I know, I'll create another plan, a plan B. So just realise that plans change, that's okay. And if you're feeling out of control, okay, we'll regain control by taking actions that move the plans. So we're going to go out for a nice family picnic. It's rained. Okay, what are we going to do? Okay, we can have a movie night and have pizza. Cool. Brilliant. They're sorted. Do you know what I mean? Or we could put a tent up in the garden and have it in, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? There's different things you do. Or we could go out for a family meal at a restaurant. We go to the cinema. There's different things that you can do. Or we could go next week. It's just realising that it's your response to that situation that's causing the issue, not the thing itself. That thing is not the issue. It's your response. Yep. And sometimes it can also be the expectation versus reality. So, for example, you are expecting an amazing Valentine's Day we just had, but that it didn't go to plan. It's that expectation versus reality. And just bring yourself back again. Like, don't respond. So don't react, respond. How do I want to respond to this situation? Like, my expectations were here. Yeah, the reality of the situation was down here. Okay, don't just lose your head and start shouting, get mad, because that's going to get you nowhere. Because you fight fire with fire, you get more fire. But if you can just, okay, how do I want to respond to this? Well, I feel really unloved. Okay, so I feel really unloved because he said he was going to get me something, or she said she was going to get me something really, really nice for Valentine's Day, and they didn't do anything. Okay, so I'm just going to articulate to them, listen, you said you were going to do this, but you didn't do anything, and it's made me feel really unloved and not worthy. So you're going at that fire with water. They're not going to bring more fire to that. Am I making sense with that?
Yeah.
So so for me, it's just realising the reason why you're struggling when plans change is because you've got no fluidity and you're trying to control the uncontrollables. So even the best laid plans, look at businesses. Businesses, like the company's got all the resources to plan stuff out, still make mistakes.
Yeah.
Look at football teams. Look at prime example football teams. You've got two football teams that are playing against each other. You've got statisticians, whatever it is. The most perfectly laid out formation, the plans, tactics. At the end of the day, the manager can control nothing but his thoughts, his actions, and his words. So his players are doing his thing, and they may lose 5-0. Okay. Like, the plan clearly didn't work.
Yeah.
What can you do about it?
And I think for me is if your original plan is plan A, 9 times out of 10 you need to use a plan B, a C, a D, and E and beyond. And I think it's just having that awareness that plan A isn't your only option, that there's always other options available to you.
And for me, I never do more than a plan B. It depends also what the situation is. So and again, it's also contextual to the situation, because for me, if you're working in business, you should be literally seeing it through to the end and understand there's going to be hurdles and challenges and obstacles. But if it is something as small as like planning a family day out and it's raining and then you lose your marbles, again, have like a plan B, as just a plan B.
Yeah.
Just plan B, because the chance of plan B not working, just so we're going to do this, or the backup is if the weather's bad, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Or let's say the car breaks down. Okay. You're there and the car breaks down. We've still got a picnic.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Get yourself to the side of the motorway,
Yeah.
make a little fun picnic on the side of the motorway, make a bit of a laugh and a joke out of it. There's things that you can always do in situations, but just realise the only thing you can control is your thoughts and your actions. You can control nothing else. You can't control anybody or anything else. You can't control how your kids behave. You can't control how your husband behaves, their emotional state. You can't control how the drivers behave. You can't control your car, the weather, nothing. So it's just bringing that best version of yourself with the awareness of this might not go to plan. And if it doesn't go to plan, that's absolutely fine. Because again, looking at it another way, it's happened for a reason. Maybe the car broke down because actually ahead of you is a massive car crash and you could have got stuck in that whole thing, but you haven't. You've had to put into a service station so you can actually sit at a service station with toilets, facilities, while that traffic builds, it gets sorted out and then you're back on the road again.
Yeah.
So I always try and look at it's happened for a reason.
Yeah, and just to build on that, I think this person here has referenced having children. And I think once I was in the headspace of children are unpredictable, you can't control anything, but you certainly cannot control children, then that just brings a different pair of eyes to the situation. And I think, so I've had a couple of times, like when Theo was at nursery and they call, he's sick, you've got to come pick him up. Whatever I've got planned, that has to then, plan B, C and D has to come into effect.
You deal with it, and also
you have to deal with it, and you just have to shuffle your pack, don't you?
And also with kids as well. Again, trigger seems to be the biggest word here of the day. When your kids trigger you, they're triggering you for a reason. There's something within you that has been triggered. It's not the kids, it's you. So stopping asking, why has this bothered me so much? Because 9 times out of 10, it's not the kids that are triggering you, because kids can't trigger you, you're triggering yourself.
Yeah.
And that's also the key point with this. When people say, oh, that triggered me. No, you triggered yourself.
Yeah.
Because a trigger is a thought, feeling, or emotion, and you're in complete control of all three. You may not be aware that you are, but you are.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm not in control of my feelings and emotions. You are. It's probably just subconscious. So it's your subconscious programming, which you can control through hard work, that's caused you to be triggered. People don't like that, but it is what it is.
Yeah.
So kids are triggering you for a reason. There's something there that, that's really interesting. That kid, my child who was 4 years old told me that I'm fat. Kids don't even know what the word fat means. They probably heard it at school, but you're getting triggered by it. Cool. Go and work on that. Why does that bother you?
Yeah.
Kids can't, do you know what I mean? Kids will really amplify. Because I've even done that with Theo. Theo has taught me more than any book ever about myself. Because you'll say and do stuff. And I'm like, this is really interesting. Why am I feeling this way?
Yep.
So lean into it. Because kids are the greatest teacher. I fully believe that.
Agreed. Anything else to add on that?
Nope, don't think so.
Okay. So this is quite a long question.
Okay.
Are you listening?
I'll take some notes in case I need the key points from my notes.
Okay. So do you have any advice on how to stop dwelling on a failed relationship and doubting the decision to break up based on the good times that we had? A follow-up is, how do you then not feel responsible for the relationship failing?
Let's go
Two parts.
The first part is dwelling on the breakup of a relationship.
Yep.
And doubting your decision to break up and just focusing on the good times.
Yes.
Yeah, cool. So get over it. Relationships aren't meant to last forever. Some are, some aren't.
Yep.
And the reason why this relationship broke down was for a reason. There was a reason why you broke up with this person, because I've done this so many times, more times than I care to count, where I have a really bad relationship with someone and I've wanted to go back time after time after time because my brain was hooked on the good times. And if you listen to my story, no surprise to people, that the good times are normally sexual orientated. So for me, it'd be the sex that would keep me hooked, going back or wanting to go back. And this then goes back to, as I mentioned, all these questions, becoming aware. What is your brain doing? Because here's the thing, and this goes back to the relationship question we had asked earlier on. If your entire life you've only known relationships to be chaos, and then you get into a relationship that's chaos, you secretly love it. And you secretly love it because you know how to control a chaotic relationship. And if you go into a relationship with someone that's really emotionally stable, mature, etc., you wouldn't know how to deal with that. So what's happened is you've removed yourself from that toxic situation. You are now single by yourself, and past triggers, past traumas, whatever it might be, are convincing you that you are the problem. Because maybe that's what you got told. Or maybe it's what you believed. When your parents were arguing and you were a little kid, we make everything about us. So your parents were arguing, oh, it's my fault. So this whole relationship that you've had because you saw your parents arguing when you were younger. This is just one example. You saw your parents arguing when you were younger. You associate that with love. Two people that argue, that's love.
Yeah.
But as a kid, you can't rationalise they're not arguing about you. They're arguing because of me. Okay. So as an adult, when you're in a relationship and it's really toxic like that, is shouting all the time, oh, well, this is love because that's my model of love and relationships is this. So this is normal. And then when it kind of stops, oh, it's my fault, it's my problem. I've caused this. And then your brain goes back to, oh, but they weren't that bad. It kind of justifies and it shows you that highlight reel. And just remember, what your brain is showing you is the highlight reel. So what I do is I have notes in my phone. I don't now, but I did have notes in my phone. Whenever this happened, I would write down all the reality of the situation.
Yeah.
So whenever the highlight reel would come up, I'd go to my phone and it literally would say, Daniel, remember that, bang, 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 bang. Straight away, snap me back to reality. Oh, yeah.
That's a really good actionable step for people that are going through this process.
Yes, because it's a natural thing. You want to get drawn back to it. Like, because again, there would be some good times.
Yeah.
But also realize that your memories are not reality.
Yeah.
So the good times you thought that you had probably weren't as good as you thought they were.
Or as frequent as you are remembering them.
Exactly. And for me, it's realizing that you broke up with them for a reason, or they broke up with you for a reason.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Yeah.
And realize that rejection is God's protection is something I heard the other day. Rejection is God's protection. So again, whether you believe in God, universe, whatever it is, like the rejection is for a reason. You've been protected. I look at some of the girlfriends that I've had, and by me not carrying on going out with them and breaking up with them, I protected them. I genuinely protected them for a reason.
And protected yourself.
And protected myself. But it's realizing we take it so personally. So in this situation, like dwelling, and again, doubting yourself, this is also then potentially the issue. You're doubting yourself. Because you've got no self-awareness of how amazing you are as a human being. So once you realize how amazing you are as a human being, you won't doubt yourself. Because you will know you did the right thing for yourself. And I doubt very much that this person just broke up with them like that.
Yeah.
There's been a process over time. There's a reason. And then it's also, key thing here, if you're in this situation, not if, when they come grovelling back and try to convince you that they've changed, the questions you need to ask, the questions you ask them, because this is textbook 101, old fuckboy Daniel, I've changed. No, I hadn't changed. I just realised that I missed the sex. And I kind of wanted to just sneak my way back in. But I genuinely thought, no, that I want this to work again. And then once back in it, I should have done this. Anyway, ask them, how have you changed? What books have you read? What courses have you been on? What therapy have you done? What counselling have you done? How long has it been? Because I'm telling you, categorically, without fail, unless something traumatic has happened, like a near-death experience, and it's made them realise what they had, I'm telling you, without fail, there is no way that if they have not gone to counselling, therapy, courses, workshops, and worked on themselves for at least 6 months, they have not changed.
Yeah.
Categorically, how the brain works, you cannot change that quickly. It's impossible. Impossible. You cannot do it. But you can change. Our good friend Rachel, tattoo artist. So she's the person that, again, was seeing in my massive football stage, didn't treat her very well at all. Pretty horrendous human being to her. She's absolutely lovely. I just, again, couldn't receive that amount of love. She literally was constantly and I was like, I can't deal with this. Broke up with her. Awful human being to her. A couple of years later, come back into her life, you're chatting away, and she's like, you're a completely different person. We're now very good friends. We went out with her and a new partner last week. I've been to concerts together, like all three of us. I got like house on fire because she literally like, you are a completely different person. Because I am a different person. And you can tell genuinely if someone has changed or not.
Yeah.
Because again, it's very easy to put on a mask. It's very easy to pretend you've changed, but to actually do the work on some of these behaviours, these habits, this self-image, that stuff that person potentially is working on, it's impossible to change that quickly. So do not fall for the trick.
Yeah.
Ask those questions, and when they start stuttering and mumbling and come out with some BS that you know is BS, just keep doing you. Find your own inner peace, because once you find that inner peace, you won't let anyone disturb it unnecessarily. So that's the first part. What was the second part of that question? I don't know if I've covered it or not, but
and how do you not feel responsible for the failed relationship?
You don't. You take responsibility, because a failed relationship requires two parties. So the relationship failed for a number of reasons. The relationship may have failed because it should never have been a relationship in the first place. So you take responsibility for the fact that you ignored all the red flags. If you knew the red flags, you carried on going into a relationship anyway, and very early on you knew that this person wasn't the right person for you, yet you still carried on anyway, and they've now broken up with you, or you've broken up with them 2 years down the line. You've wasted 2 years of your life. Okay, Own the fact that you allowed them to waste 2 years of your life because you knew they weren't the right person and you were trying to date their potential and not actually date the person. Or if I just stay with them, if I just stay with them and they'll change. They're not going to change. They are not going to change. I'm going to say straight to that camera. They are not going to change. You are not God. You are not that good. No one is going to change. I'm telling you categorically, guys, women, you will not change. You won't. It's not the case. So then you take responsibility. You take responsibility and you own it. You lick your wounds and you learn from it if you want to. Because there's things that you could have done to either not get into that relationship. And 9 times out of 10, if this is a bad relationship, this is the 4th relationship in a row, take responsibility for all of the other 3 relationships as well and realise I am the problem. And people, again, hate to hear that. I am the problem. Now, is that taken away from the fact that you may not have been treated well in that relationship? No. Maybe they treated you like an arsehole. Maybe they mugged you off. But you allowed it. And you allowed it because you never got to the place where this is me, this is my self-worth, and you're not stepping over these boundaries. You let them do all these things and you let it go on for 2 years, 3 years. And now finally when it's over, you want to play the victim. Oh, they treat me so badly. Oh, no. They did do that, but because you knew they weren't right for you in the first place. You saw these red flags, but you didn't want to be alone. You don't want to be alone, so you'd rather be in this toxic relationship that makes you feel like absolute crap because you think that you are crap on your core. You think this is what I'm worth, so you don't want to leave. And now you're left by yourself. What are you going to do? Because you've got 2 choices. You're either going to work on yourself and become the best version of you and realise that you are amazing, work on all these things that have caused you to pick the wrong guy time after time after time after again and take responsibility for your part you've played in it and do something about it. Or you're going to go out and find a new boyfriend and in 3 years' time, 2 years' time, 1 year time, you're having the exact same conversation again. Choice is yours. I don't care. I don't care, but that's the reality of it.
And you see that an awful lot, don't you?
All the time. People just bouncing from relationship. You're not ready. You're not ready. And again, don't get me wrong. Every now and again, miracles do happen, and you just happen to bounce into a relationship with someone that is absolutely amazing. Yeah. They can put up with all your toxic BS, and you just work perfectly, synergistically. Okay. Very rare.
Very rare. Very rare. Yeah, and I think there is so much to be said about being single and just working on you. Yep. Obviously, we both did that for a number of years, kind of flished around in the dating market or whatever, but we're just kind of just happy in our own little lives. And I think that is when you will attract the right kind of people into your life. When you are happy with the life that you've got by yourself, that is a time when you can start looking at dating. Yep. When you can sit in a room by yourself on a Friday and Saturday night, not need someone to come over to scratch your sexual itch, to be completely comfortable and happy in your own content little world and look around and be like, my life is awesome. Yeah. And I genuinely love myself. I can look in the mirror and be like, yeah, I'm good. That's when you can start to look for dates. That's when you can start to be like, do you know what? I'm ready for someone to come into my life. Yeah. If you can't do that, don't try and suppress it with drugs, alcohol, whatever it is. Actually just sit with yourself and try and unpick that. And again, there's great coaches out there. Again, I understand people can't afford coaches. I get that. Not everyone can afford my prices. I get that. But there's videos, podcasts, there's
YouTube.
Free resources out there.
Resources out there. But you just got to be willing to actually do it. Because I don't make anyone do anything. When people work with me, I can only stand at the 50-yard line. They've got to do the rest. I can go 50% of the way. They have to meet me 50%. I can't step over that line. So if you're not willing to do at least that amount of work, no one can help you. So to answer that question, how do you not take responsibility? You take responsibility. Yeah. You're not taking away the blame from them because they've got their part to play. If that's not your responsibility. And again, let's say in this example, let's say that person was a horrific human being and 95% of the relationship breakdown was on them being a horrific, disgusting, awful human being. Take that 5%, take that 5% responsibility and work on that and focus on that because that's going to help you get better, grow, evolve and not get into that same situation over and over and over again. I wish I could drop the mic. I was about to say, I literally was about to do that. Okay, so next question, completely different topic. How do I change my negative mindset around food and my weight, i.e. obsessing about eating bad food and gaining weight, etc.? Educate yourself on nutrition. Educate yourself on nutrition and what calories actually are. So a calorie is just a unit of energy. Calories do not make you fat. And start to understand the basic fundamental principles of nutrition. Because for me, when you start to focus on food, you then become obsessed with food. When you understand food, you don't need to obsess with it because you just understand it. Does that make sense? It's only when people don't understand it, they feel like they have to constantly be like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God.
once you understand food, once you understand the basic principles of how food works. So again, I'll go to the whiteboard because it kind of makes it a bit easier here to understand. If I've got that loaded up, technology. So this is a crash course 101 for people on nutrition. So there's 3 things you really want to focus on, 4 things you really want to focus on. Basically, the first one is calories. So calories are, that's also how you spell calories very clearly. So calories are just energy. That's all calories are. Calories are energy. So when we hear calories, people think that calories are like a measurement of fat or something like that, how much fat you're going to gain from eating this food. Calories are just a unit of potential energy that you can get from that food. Again, keyword here is potential energy. You've then got something called macros, macronutrients, and you have 3. You have protein, you have carbs, and you have fat. They are the 3 macronutrients. There is no more, there is just 3. They're the 3 you need to focus on and understand. People fear carbs. Carbs do not get you fat. They do not get you fat. Having a diet very high in carbohydrates can cause you to potentially gain weight. It causes you to gain weight, and here's another key thing. Weight and fat are 2 very, very different things. Weight and fat are 2 very different things. The reason why carbs can cause you to gain weight is because when you consume carbohydrates and it goes into your cells, it also takes water with it. So therefore you gain water weight. You have not gained fat, you have gained weight, and weight and fat are 2 different things. So you also need to understand when you're stepping on the scales, what are you actually seeing? The number you're seeing measures your relationship with gravity at that particular moment you're stepping on the scale. It is data. It is not telling you that you weigh 10 stone of fat. It is saying that you and your relationship with gravity at that moment in time is 10 stone. And that 10 stone is your organs, the food that's inside you, the blood that's inside your brain, bone, skin, everything, and fat. It's everything, muscle mass, everything combined in one at that moment in time. It also does not measure your self-worth. When you're stepping on that scale, that number is not your self-worth. So realizing here, carbs do not make you fat. The only thing that will make you fat is consuming too many calories and not moving. And again, I understand there's nuances to this. People with endometriosis, people are taking medication, people have got thyroid issues. Cool. So I'm speaking very genuinely and vaguely here. But once you've found the kind of calorie range that works for you, it's a range, it's not a number. Whereas if you hit this one number, if you go 1 calorie above it, you're going to get fat. That's not how this works. You understand the calorie range for you. You understand that carbs are not the enemy. And you focus, where is my protein coming from? Whatever goes into your mouth, ask yourself, where's the protein coming from this? Because the main issue that people struggle with is their diet compiles mainly of carbohydrates and fat, but the fat does not make you fat. It is the man-made processed fat that causes you issues. Having good quality fats like avocados, seeds, nuts, butters, they're fine. So people will have number 1 as carbohydrates, number 2 as fats, and number 3 as proteins if and when they think about it. It needs to be the way around. It needs to be, the first thing you think about is protein. How much protein am I having? Then number 2, where are the carbs coming from? And then number 3, where are my healthy fats? In relationship to the calories that you want to go on. So it's just educating yourself on basic nutrition. Don't get obsessed with it, because that's another thing. It's like what we resist persists. So the more you focus on, oh no, food are bad, the more you're giving energy to food and stuff. So it's realizing the number on the scales, number 1, is not your self-worth. Understand it measures everything. Understand there's a difference between weight and fat loss. Weight loss, weight will fluctuate. That is what weight is meant to do. Even when it comes down to just eating food. If you've got a bin, let's just you weigh a bin. If you stick more food in the bin is going to weigh more. Basic simple maths. So if you're having to eat loads of healthy food, which is really good quality food, that's going to have more density to it than eating McDonald's. You can eat 1 McDonald's Big Mac meal, large Big Mac meal, it's 1,500 calories. Stick 1 large Big Mac meal into your bin. See how much it weighs. Now stick the same 1,500 calories from good quality sources, and that is a lot of food. Then weigh the bin. The bin's going to weigh heavier. So understand weight and fat are 2 different things. And also with this, people say like, oh, fat, muscle weighs more than fat. Incorrect. Fat and muscle weigh the same. Because let's say I weigh, I don't know, I think we're in kilograms. I've got a kilogram of muscle and a kilogram of fat.
They're both a
kilogram. They weigh the same.
They just take up a different amount of space.
The difference is fat takes up more space than muscle. But they weigh the same because the measurement is the measurement no matter what it is. If I get a kilogram of stones and a kilogram of feathers, it is still a kilogram. There's just going to be substantially more feathers than there are stones.
Yeah.
Does that answer that question?
Yeah, it does. And for me, I just want to add to the end of that because as a female, that number on the scale does not define your self-worth, what people think of you. You are an amazing human. And whether that scale is 1 weight one day and then 2 pounds more the next day, you are still an amazing human.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say on that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, moving on. We have 2 more questions left. This is a very short but quite deep question. How do you decide if you want children or not?
Is this aimed at me or is this a genuine question?
That's just what the question said.
How do I... Again, I'm not really in a position necessarily to answer this. I'll answer it from my personal perspective because, again, I think it's a personal thing. Like, no one can decide whether you're ready to have kids or not. And I also think in certain situations, you get thrown into it. You don't ever plan on having kids. You just then have to step up and do it. Because I've never wanted kids. You know that. I made it very clear from day one. I've never wanted kids. I've never been interested in having a kid in my life. It's just not been a thing. However, for me, when I got to stage review, I then realised, right, I've got a decision to make right now because I either have Katie and Theo or I don't have Katie. Decision. Okay, what's more important to me? And I realised you and then with Theo is more important. Okay, cool. So then that for me made me, because it's situational. But then for me, the most important question I asked was, am I in the headspace to go into this little person's life? That was the question for me. It hadn't anything to do with you. It's just like, am I ready mentally, emotionally to have a little person, not depend on me because he's got his own dad, but understanding the amount of time he's with you, that I'm going to have to play a big role. Am I ready to step up to do that? I don't think you're ever going to be ready. But again, I've said this more time, I'm more self-aware than most people. And I was like, I can do this. I'm prepared to do this. Not ready, I'm prepared.
Yeah.
Because I wasn't ready. And I never would be ready. I don't think anyone's ever ready to be a parent. Again, I'm not a parent. I'm a step-parent. But again, you two are both parents. I don't think you're ever ready to be a parent. I think it's just there. But I think the biggest thing for me is, I don't know if this person was male or female that asked this, don't just have a kid for the sake of having a kid. It's not about you wanting a kid. It's about you and hopefully the partner that you're with being ready to create a family. I'm not against families that separate. I don't think it's an issue at all. I think kids can be raised in a very healthy relationship that way. But don't just have a kid for the sake of having a kid without thinking 15 years down the line, how's it going to affect this child, male or female, if they don't have a dad or a mum in their life because they're effed off.
Yeah.
Does it make sense? So like, don't take that decision lightly. But if you're waiting for a sign to be like, oh, you can wake up one day and be like, oh, I want to have a kid now. I don't think that's ever the case. Some people are very maternal. I think some people have known from very early on I want to have a massive family. If you're not one of those people, just asking yourself, am I ready to commit the next, well, however the person is, the rest of my life? Because again, it doesn't stop.
Yeah.
You don't stop being a parent. It's not when you get to 18. No, you are always going to be a parent. For the rest of my life, am I prepared to be a parent? If the answer is no, I wouldn't even entertain it. And it's not about having the finances and stuff like that because you can figure all that stuff out. But emotionally, are you ready to actually have someone depend on you for the rest of your life?
Yeah.
That would be something I ask.
Yeah. And I think to build on that.
Yeah, you're better qualified to answer.
Yeah, no, that's really good perspective. And I think just to build on that, because obviously you came into Theo's life when he was like just 2, I think. And arguably like that first year is hard. It is really fucking hard.
Yeah, but 2, but I was coming to his life as a friend.
Yeah.
So we weren't going out. It's just like,
absolutely. But the point I'm making to answer this question is that first year is hard. And I think you need to have your shit together as a human and as a couple to be able to make that work. Because I think for me, I hadn't, I've been quite open about it. I hadn't planned on having children. I didn't particularly want children. Obviously I've got Theo. But for me, I found it very difficult that first year mentally because of the point of which I found out I was pregnant. Mentally, I wasn't in a good place. So I think for anyone thinking about having children, I would just say, have you got your shit together? Are you in a place where you can emotionally and healthily bring up a child into this world? Because it's really hard, sleep deprivation and all that good stuff. Throw that into the mix when you're mentally not okay. It can be really, really tough. So that's just one thing that I would question, like, are you in a place to be able to do this mentally?
But if you're looking for a sign, there is no sign.
Yeah.
And no one can, and again, and that's so possible, the person answering this question, like, no one can give you the answer. I'm not sure what you're looking for. Like, no one's going to give you wait for someone to say that you can have kids, that you could put, like, for me, you shouldn't be asking other people when's the right time to have kids. Yeah. That then tells me potentially you're not in the right place to have kids, maybe.
Yeah. Because it is probably the biggest decision you will ever have to make in your life.
Yeah. And again, so for me, it's like, what checklist you need to complete for you. Do you mean? I think it's having a proper sit down with you, yourself, and your partner, are we both prepared to do this? That's the question.
Okay.
Are we both prepared? Is our relationship in a place where we can have this person, this little person for the rest of our lives? Again, relationships break down. It happens. I'm not saying you've got to death to us part, like you have to stay with the person. No. But right now, are we both prepared for the next 18 years to build the best relationship possible, to nurture this child, etc., etc., etc.? And if you're both on the same page, then cool, why not? The finances and stuff can all get worked out. But do you know what I mean? For me, that's the question you'll be asking, not asking other people. It's between you and your partner. And I recommend you do have a partner rather than just going and finding some random person and getting pregnant by them.
Yeah.
I don't think that's a smart idea. Just my opinion. But again, if you're that desperate to have a kid, that's something else to work on. Like why you're that desperate to have that unconditional love. That's another story. Anyway.
That is another story for another day. But no, that was really good perspective on how, like, as a step parent as well.
Kids also won't save a relationship.
No.
Carry on.
Anything else to add?
No. Just want to get that in there. Because I think people have kids sometimes to save relationships. So just want to get that in there as well. They will not save a relationship.
No. They'll make it worse. So final question. When you've had a busy and potentially stressful week, how do you unwind, spend time on yourself and your partner, and not spend the time thinking about work?
It depends what you're doing. So for me, I always think about work. And I always will think about work because I am my business. So I will always think about work non-stop. And you know that from day one.
Yeah.
I'm unapologetic about it. It is what it is. But if you're working a normal 9-to-5 job, it's then having something in play at the weekend, let's say, at the end of a busy week, that you can have like a ritual to finish the day, finish the work weeks, where you're like, right, it's Friday, I'm going to spend, I don't know, so you finish work and you maybe read a book, or you watch a TV show, or you listen to an album, or you go for a walk, or you do something where you are just get it out of your system. Journaling is a good thing to do. Just journal it, just get it out of your head. What are my thoughts on the week? How could I have improved? What things am I going to be working on next week? So you're kind of just planning ahead. Just get out of your head. But there needs to be, for me, that clear divide. If you're struggling to go into the weekend without thinking about it, there needs to be like that divide. And this, again, if you're employed. Because you're contracted for certain hours. I understand sometimes you've got to go over that. And I get that. But if it's affecting other areas of your life, you have to just draw a very clear line, distinction mentally in your mind. I'm done with work. But if you're the kind of person that like can't then turn it back on again, write a brief to yourself. On Monday, this is what we need to be working on. We need to pick this up. So on Friday, you write a breakdown for the week. Then on Monday, this is what we're going to pick up. Then on Sunday evening, just read what you wrote. Oh yeah, right. Back into work mode again. So you're then easing yourself in on Sunday night about what's to come the next week. Am I making sense of that? But it's having those clear boundaries again. So maybe not checking work emails. If you're not contracted or paid to work weekends, don't check your emails because that's not what you do. I mean, and again, it's nuanced because I don't know what the person's role is. If you're very high within the company, I understand you will maybe have to do some stuff, but maybe do it on a Saturday morning and a Saturday evening, and you spend 30 minutes on each, and then maybe a Sunday afternoon. But that's it. So you're very clear boundaries of when you work and when you're not working, when you look at your phone, when you don't look at your phone. But for me, if it's normal people working 9-to-5, journal, get things out of your head, decompartmentalize, like put things to bed, put things to rest, reflect on the week, learn from it, tell yourself, future you, what we're going to be doing on the Monday, and then just, as best you can, just draw that clear line. I'm now out of work mode, into family mode, and then off you go. And be present.
Yep.
Mindfulness, be present. If you start to notice your mind wandering back to work, first of all, ask yourself, well, where's my head going with that? Maybe write a note to yourself in your notes if it's something really important, an idea that pops up.
Yeah.
Because here's the thing, if you're struggling with stuff at work, when you are relaxed and not thinking about work is when good ideas will probably pop up. Yeah. And that's okay. That's a great time. Cool. Let's write that down or voice note yourself. I just learned something new the other day. You can message yourself on WhatsApp.
Yeah.
So
it's new. You're not that behind.
So message yourself on WhatsApp and voice note.
Yeah.
And then pick that up again Sunday evening or Monday morning. But just get it out of your head and then be present. Be present with your family. Be present with your kids because kids and your partners will know when you're not being present. Yeah. That's my advice on that.
And I think if you do run your own business, it is very different. But I think if you carve, like you spoke about it before, carving time out for your partner and your children or whatever that needs to be so that you do have that in the diary so you know that is booked in.
Yeah, so date night, for example. So if you've got a partner and you are self-employed, running your own business, have a date night because if it's not in my diary, it doesn't get done. So Saturday night, date night from 3 o'clock onwards, depending on if you're playing or not. So between 3 or 6 p.m, date night starts and that's it. Yeah. And my clients know that you're not going to get a response from me on a Saturday night. Cool.
Absolutely.
Let's pick up from there. Any other questions at all?
No. Do you have anything else to add?
No. If you have any questions at all, if you're on YouTube, pop them in the comments below. If you are listening on audio, I'll put the anonymous questions link in there so you can ask a question. It's completely anonymous. I can't see what it is. Obviously, if you're on YouTube and you're writing it in the comments, I can see what it is. But yeah, thank you for this today. And again, don't forget to give us a follow on Instagram at the Prime Life Project. And if you took any value from today's episode, don't forget to like and share with a friend.